Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Awakening Her podcast. How are you doing, my friend? My name is Talia Joy, and if you are new here, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. I'm so happy our paths have crossed. Pull up a beanbag chair. This is a comfy, cozy corner where we just get to be who we truly are. So today we are talking about pouring from an empty cup. And before I dive in, there are a few things that are on my heart that I just want to share with you guys today before we dive in. It's definitely pertaining to the topic and just how I've been experiencing things, a little bit about what's been going on with me lately. So I'll be brief, but I just want to share a little bit on my heart. So it has been a very weird time behind the scenes here. This is because I'm sure you can relate. I'm a deep thinker, I'm a deep feeler, deep healer. Stuff is, I don't know, it's like I live a deep, rich internal world. So, first of all, on the surface, everyone's fine. My family's fine. The deep, weird, intense, hard time is nothing to do with anything like that. It's internal. It's the healing journey. It's the being with yourself journey. It's the stuff coming up journey. So again, sometimes it's more physical, like I'm working on this thing and no matter what I do, I can't achieve this, milestone. Or there's times when parenting is like, it's challenging, it's hard, it's kind of physical stuff. But what I'm dealing with right now is, I don't know, an awakening crisis or a starseed crisis or an empath crisis. It's some sort of crisis, but it's heavy and it's deep. And today's episode, I chose this on purpose. I mean, of course, I choose all the episodes on purpose, but I could have done an episode that was very powerful and very get out there and do the thing and you're meant for it and take action. But that's not how I'm feeling. And so whether you're feeling heavy and weird inside like me, or maybe you're actually in that very active spring type feel where you're going, and you've noticed you're pouring from an empty cup. Whatever angle we're talking about today for you, just know that I hear you, I see you, this applies to you. But back to what I was kind of saying, it has been very heavy. I've been experiencing it for a few, I don't know, I was going to say my whole life. No, but a few months where it's been dense, but things kind of come in swells, right? Like waves come in swells and it's kind of been swelling up for a bit. And then it kind of has reached this, I don't know what you say, like pinnacle where it's just dense, it's intense, things are triggering, things are disempowering, it kind of comes to a head where we have like a breakdown. And so I was feeling that slow burn for a while where it's like something's off, I'm overstimulated, something's not clicking, I'm trying, right, to show up for myself and spend more time even like in de-stimulation, more time taking walks or looking after my body or whatever. But it just, anyway, I was feeling it getting more and more and more intense, like nothing's really touching this deep feeling. And part of it is starseed stuff where I'm not going to go too far into it in this episode, but this feeling of not really being cut out for this earth, feeling like life is intense, right? I'm sure you can relate to that. And sometimes it almost feels too intense. So I spend a lot of time going like believing, and I was saying this to my husband the other day, probably in tears, but I was saying like I ride on belief and trust and healing and inspired action. And there's some times where it just feels like it's all too much and it brings me to my knees and it humbles me. Sometimes that can be like a big trigger that comes up or something that taps on something really deep and emotional. And sometimes I don't even know what the heck is going on, but everything feels like too much. And that's what I've been feeling this coming. And then it was really starting to be like, I don't know, it's almost like the pressure of life and it's all bubbling up. And, I have a very busy life. I've got 3 kids and business and all these things that, all these commitments we have. And it just feels like I can't slow down the train. I can't stop the train to just have a minute to be with myself, to get my shit together, for lack of better words. Just kidding. But it's like I can't even have a pause to kind of reorient, figure out what's going on, what I need, and start to shift that energy. And so sometimes I'm getting the visual of like you're swimming and every wave keeps crashing on you and you can't even get a breath. You're just trying to, I feel like I'm just trying to like breathe and everything keeps crashing and life and this and that and pulling me in all these directions, and it's intense. So this was happening, starting to really feel that peak, and then I got sick, and then I was sick for almost a week, which has been very brutal because I don't get sick very often, thankfully. And it just, nobody likes that feeling. So over it. I even had a day on like day 4 where I actually felt really good. I'm like, oh, I'm back. I'm doing laundry. I'm doing this. Maybe overdid it, but I really, truly felt great. And the next day I felt much worse. I was like, well, back into bed with a hot water bottle. But it's been a very weird time, and I feel dark and tender and hurting, and soft and vulnerable and not myself. Yet I question, what is that self that I feel I'm not? Okay. Who am I? What's going on? How do we truly make the most of this life experience? And so I won't go on and on because, we're getting a little heavy. But one of the biggest things that I've been really moving through is this feeling of like, I'm healing. I have trauma, as we do, abandonment wounds, which causes me to act in certain ways or push people away or self-abandon or feel like I'm alone eternally, like even when I clearly have people around me who care. And these things are really big and hard to deal with. And as I was feeling, where I was going with this whole feeling the slow burn thing happening, is I was just keeping on going. As I'm feeling that kind of swelling up, but like, what do I do on a random Tuesday, right? Like I still have to do what I have commitments to do, or on a random day, my kids still are there and need something, and I'm pulled in that direction, So I just kept going, just doing the stuff, just living the identities of mom, coach, healer, wife, friend, the roles we play, but not looking after myself in a way that I'm starting to realize has been missing, which comes back into the pouring from an empty cup, is just keeping on going when you can feel deep down that something is not right. I'm getting more and more tired or more and more depleted. And there comes a point in the breakdown, in the spiritual flu, in, the times when we just simply can't keep going like that. Like it starts to resemble a life that it's like, okay, I know I don't want to live that life. I know I don't want to go dark. I know I don't want to like remain feeling alone. I know I don't want to just keep pushing and ignore myself. And so there's almost this breakdown that happens where it's like nothing is working. And so you have no other choice but to break down and look at it. So we are truly talking about this in this episode. I'm going to help you if you can relate, whether yours is a little bit less dark or maybe a little bit more dark. It's still this vibe of like when something is leaking your power, when something is not working. But we keep trying to do stuff, keep trying to figure it out, keep trying to do the same thing, expecting different results. We keep ignoring the inner voice. We keep putting our needs aside. We keep not speaking up for ourselves or making moves in the directions of our dreams. And it becomes this like torture of I'm not living who I truly am, yet I'm not even really sure what's out of alignment. Does that make sense? So I just want to share because, a lot of you guys care. You ask how I'm doing. You reach out. I appreciate it so much, especially as a lone wolf starseed, knowing people care, knowing people are out there, knowing that you can relate in some way. It truly means the most to me. And I'm going to still, try to show up as consistently as I can. Instagram, I've been very in and out, but here and on the path, you guys have my soul and heart, and I'm committed and devoted to you guys. And I'm also incredibly committed and devoted to myself in this upcoming chapter, which I'll share as we kind of move through the episode, what I've been really learning from this time and how even today and yesterday and the day before, my practices are slowly shifting away from a doing and into more of a being. And for some of you that have been around the block with me, this is the stuff I preach and I have been preaching for years. And this is the stuff I myself have to continually practice. It's like a dentist doesn't not brush their teeth. They have to brush their teeth every single day. In fact, taking care of their teeth every single day is going to help them in their career to be an example, to, show their patients that they take care of themselves. And so sometimes, not that I'm in this time of tenderness overly concerned of being an example, I'm kind of a mess. I am still committed to this path day in and day out, this healing, the being over the doing, the soulfully moving forward. This is what I live and breathe, and it can get hard and it can get intense and emotional and weepy and uncertain and unclear. And I've had some of my own WTF spirit moments, like what is actually going on? Why am I experiencing this and experiencing these patterns? Have you ever had those where you're just, for me with my spirit team, I'm like, I'm trying. What do you want? And it's hard. So there's no real rainbows at the end of that one. Just wanted to give you a little heads up. I will share, as I said, some of the breakthroughs I've been experiencing. And I hope that this episode helps you. And to get back to the episode, we are talking about pouring from an empty cup, why we feel so drained, identifying what is leaking our power. So with that, grab a super chill beverage today if you're feeling like me, or take a sip of your water, and let's just dive into this episode. Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to the Awakening Her podcast. I am so grateful that you've been led here, and I'm so excited for you that you're answering the call to manifest more magic in your life. My name is Talia Joy, and I am committed to showing you exactly how to manifest more excitement, ease, success, abundance, confidence, love, and anything else you've been craving. So if you're ready to go on a magical journey of spiritual and self-growth to manifest the life you're meant for, we are now besties. Let's dive in. Okay, so getting into it, we are getting real today about why we can feel exhausted, disconnected from ourselves, disconnected from others sometimes. Maybe we feel stuck on the surface, like what we're doing isn't working. And I don't just want to say you're doing too much, right? Just don't do so much, don't hustle, and kind of leave it at that. Because the more important thing underneath to really think about is your power is leaking. It's called a power leak. And sometimes we can do a huge amount of things in a day and not feel like our power is leaked. There are times where I've moved my house and you're going all day, or you're in a big creative project and it's like sunrise to sundown, but you feel alive. There are lots of times where we do a lot, where I hike a mountain with my husband, but it feels invigorating. It doesn't, did I say that right? Invigorating. Invigorating. It doesn't feel like I'm pouring from an empty cup. We really want to start to look at power leaks. So sometimes in this time, we are eroding our self-trust. We're engaging in a behavior where we're self-sabotaging, and that itself is draining to the psyche. We can be abandoning ourselves in ways that we don't even see, which we're going to get into as we go through this. We could reinforce cycles of exhaustion, depletion, confusion. And for me, I noticed something is through this time and leading up to it, my nervous system just feeling completely frazzled, even as I'm practicing constantly, but it's calling for more devotion, more safety, more security, more slowing down, right? And when I'm ignoring that, that becomes a power leak. So you don't have to do more to feel better. In fact, from that place, like do more, that's more activating to the nervous system. We don't need to keep chasing, and this is not the time to try to figure it out. So, as I said in the intro, if you're feeling heavy like I've been feeling, it's going to be slightly different than if you are feeling really like on top of the world, but you find yourself just feeling tired and exhausted because you're pouring from an empty cup. From that place, even sometimes we want to go like, okay, we just got to like figure it out, right? Whether we're high energy or low energy, we go either like, I got to figure this out, or like, okay, we got to figure this out. What's the plan? What's the plan? And sometimes we just need to stop chasing, stop pushing, stop proving, stop hustling. And that could be taking a weekend off. That could be taking evenings off. That could be taking a week off work or taking the pressure off of yourself for just a few days. Or it could mean, lessening your commitments, really taking time to reassess where you're at, how you're pouring into yourself, the relationship you currently have with yourself, your health, all these things. We might need to take a bigger pause. So it really just depends what's going on in your life. But when the power leaks start to be mended, we hold an extraordinary extra amount of power. Say there's a leak in a pipe in your house or something. How much water is coming out of that leak? And if that leak is just simply patched, you hold all that water now because nothing's leaking out. So it's actually surprising sometimes how small changes, because they patch a hole, for lack of better words, small changes can actually give us so much more energy back. So much more, like there's such a higher return on investment, if you want to think of it like that. And that's some of the stuff that I've been realizing even in the last few days that I'm going to be sharing about. So really realizing that it's not that we have to get to the bottom of all of our wounds, heal all of our wounds in order to feel better. And it doesn't mean that we have to figure out a plan right now. Often it's the opposite. So this is what nobody else really talks about, or at least I don't see it said like this. Power leaks aren't just making us tired. They are keeping you, me, all of us, in a loop of self-abandonment, in a loop of self-sabotage, but more from the lens of us rejecting ourselves, us rejecting our needs. A lot of people look at self-sabotage just like it's like a weakness, like, oh, that person, or I've been self-sabotaging. But when we think about it more like self-abandonment, self-rejection, that's more tied into a wound, into a behavior, into a habit or an identity that we have. So imagine, this makes me want to cry, imagine your inner child looking up at you asking, do we matter? Do my needs matter? Every time you ignore your intuition, overcommit, silence your truth, not take time, not honor your core values, your core needs, you're telling yourself, no, we don't. And I know that's heavy, but I want change for you. As you guys know, I'm a little no BS, right? So these are the things that I'm going through personally, as you can hear in my voice, as you can hear in what I'm sharing. This is where we feel disconnected from ourselves. This is why we feel like no matter how much we do, or no matter how much you work on yourself, something still feels off. And I'll tell you, I was saying this to a client this week, just how often, and I see this in myself, we can try to just figure out the plan and take another money blocks course and take another thing and learn something else out there because we are avoiding showing up for ourselves in a way that we know would change our lives. Why? Because it puts us face to face with our wounds. So to show up for myself as my highest self, as my most loving self, to heal self-abandonment, puts me directly face to face with the wounds. It makes me address, heal, move through, hold them, which can be very, very intense. And when we ignore that and we just take another money blocks course or whatever, just for an example, right? Or we think, oh, if I just go on a diet, that's going to heal all this stuff I feel about how I don't love my body, or I don't this, or I don't that. Just, different examples of how this can show up when we just opt for like the plan and try to do the quick fix. It causes us to be shoved into a breakdown. It causes us to be shoved into what I'm going through. A spiritual flu, a physical flu, something that brings us to our knees so we can see how we've been abandoning ourselves. But we kind of knew it all the way along. And I kind of knew, especially when I look back, like for the last 6-8 months, whispers and whispers and whispers and whispers that I'm like, yeah, but there's a thing to do. Yeah, but these people need me. Yeah, but I have a commitment. And life will make you break until you don't have an option but to see what you've been doing. Okay, so we're getting a little dark, but you guys feel me. I feel like this is going to help, a lot of you, because this is truly what we go through. So how can we trust ourselves to lead ourselves if we keep abandoning? How can you trust yourself to lead you there, to walk you into your dreams if you keep abandoning yourself? So this is where we get face to face, as I said, where we need to break the cycle. We need to reclaim the energy. We need to learn another level deeper. A lot of times the same stuff, just another level deeper. And basically all my clients that work with me, I'll say this to them over and over, that sometimes it's actually the same wound in a different suit, or the same feeling of unworthiness, of not being able to trust ourselves, of not being able to trust our intuition, of feeling alone, but it's just another level deeper. So in some ways it's good that it's not always new work, it's the same work, it's just deeper, and sometimes just in a different suit. But this is where we rebuild self-trust. We need to come back into ourselves. This is where we become unshakable. And it doesn't mean we don't have people support us, our besties, our therapists, our mentors. When I'm working with clients, it's a co-collaborative. I'm helping you. I'm supporting you. That's not a bad thing. But it's where we go, what do I do? And where's the plan? And someone tell me the magic secret to heal the something. Like it's always going to, they're showing me, like my team showing me like a boomerang. Like when we speak out, like, what do I do? It goes out into life and then just comes back into us. It's like, the answer is always going to come back from yourself. So let's talk deeper about power leaks. By the way, I hope I'm making sense in this episode. It's not all, I've got my key points I want to talk about, but because it's so raw and deep right now, I'm a little bit all over the place, but I do know that, you guys, I'm sure can relate, and I'm sure that I'm not alone in this. So hopefully it makes sense. Okay, so I want to talk about a couple different types of power leaks and how we can start to spot them. So you hopefully don't have to have the breakdown and the flu and the spiritual flu that I've been having. So the first thing I want to talk about is mental power leaks, overthinking, self-doubt, outsourcing your knowing. Every time you second guess yourself, you're telling your intuition, I don't trust you. You're telling your heart, like, which starts to damage our self-trust. So all of us second guess sometimes, right? We go like, I'm going to do this. And then we go, wait, should I do this? And it's normal. However, when, like for myself, what I was noticing is some of the things I have on my heart that are like my next level or things I want to move into, I started going, can I actually do this? Like, is this actually, can I? Which that's not often something I think, because I tend to be just like gassed up on faith and inspired action and quantum leaps and all this big stuff where I'm like, of course I'm meant for this. And of course this is happening. But sometimes when I get shoved down to the ground, I'm like, do I even have what it takes to pull through for myself for this? And that's tough. That's big. Other ways that we do this too is, these mental power leaks, like obsessing over what other people think, how other people perceive you. How did I seem there? How did I, did they think, I sounded a certain way, whatever it is, but obsessing over what other people think, especially about your decisions, about your dreams, about what you're doing. And it's very normal, but it can be a huge mental power leak. We can also replay conversations over and over. We can, really second guess or doubt who we are being, how we showed up. Are we enough? We can doubt our dreams. We can doubt if, like I was mentioning, if we have what it takes. We can constantly seek validation outside ourselves. And mental chatter in general that's like, we got to figure it out. Like, no, we just got to focus on this. And then, oh, you should be really drinking more water. Or like, oh, you really should be doing this. And when's the last time? Like sometimes the peanut gallery up there, the chatterbox central just does not stop. And I know a lot of you can relate to this. And so sometimes these mental power leaks can really be taking a lot of our energy because we're in our mind, unless we're sleeping, which of course we're still in our mind, but unless we're sleeping, we are thinking thoughts and we're aware of those thoughts. So what thoughts are we thinking? What's going on up there? That can be a huge place where we leak our power. Another one is emotional leaks. So this is where we notice ourselves holding on to resentment, or when we don't speak our boundaries, and when we're not looking after our needs and our emotional needs. Maybe we're people pleasing. Maybe we're staying in dynamics where we don't feel appreciated, to a large amount. Like it's just not a good situation and we're emotionally just feeling really drained. When we are giving emotionally, and there's never that reciprocal energy, I guess, to feel like it's rewarding, meaning like, there's some family members, some friends, some people where it feels like you're always the one pouring out and you're never getting anything back. Relationships are obviously, you don't give just to receive, but sometimes there's got to be that give and take where you're there for each other. There is a reciprocal support and love and, whatever. So you get it. But these emotional leaks, when we're feeling always not good enough, when we're feeling always small, or we feel like we're never doing enough, or we have these persistent fears that cause emotions. So like, am I going to end up alone? Or am I ever going to do this? These emotional leaks can be really, really big. Another one is physical leaks. So this is really, I think of root chakra, I think of looking after yourself, physical leaks. So are you getting enough sleep? How's your nervous system? That's huge. Ignoring your body's needs for, needs. Sorry, my head's a little foggy. Your body's needs for maybe, again, rest, water, nutrition, nutrients of some sort, calories, food. Maybe it's sunlight, maybe it's movement, that kind of thing. And we ignore our body's needs because we just keep pushing. And we keep pushing through exhaustion instead of restoring, instead of nurturing and nourishing ourselves. So physically, we can say like, what's going on here? And even if there's something where your gut is, persistent or consistently, there we go, consistently off, that can be something that really leaks our power, right? And I deal with physical pain. Oh my goodness, that leaks my power. It can get so intense and my body just, cries out to me like, oh. And so these physical leaks, poor sleep, nutrition, hydration, all that, this can really make a big difference and definitely leak our power. And then energetic leaks on a deeper level. And this is something I want you guys to really hear and, see if you can relate to this. You can probably hear the neighbor's dog. Maybe that's my dog. I don't know. But these energetic leaks, saying yes when the soul's saying no, forcing things out of fear, when we resist our intuition or our soul or what we feel energetically is better for us, or when we resist what it's nudging us to do, or, that type of thing. When we stay in environments that match a low self-worth frequency and that no longer match where we're going. There are lots of things. I mean, all these things I went through are energetic leaks, but this one is like when we're going against our soul, when we're going against the deeper part of us, when we're not nurturing our core values, when we're not looking after ourselves. The result is feeling depleted, uninspired, disconnected. And sometimes, again, we don't even realize what's going on. So we're going to talk about that. Why don't we notice our power leaks? Often we don't notice these things because we feel completely burnt out, overwhelmed, stuck. This is what's been going on with me. Like I feel exhausted, like when you exhale, but then you don't take an inhale, it's like deflated, And this is because our power leaks happen in micro moments. It's not just one big energy leak. And sometimes we do have a big energy leak, like a toxic relationship or something. But often, even within those, it is daily, small, little things where we unconsciously give away our power, where we unconsciously put ourselves at the bottom of the pile. Saying yes when your body says no, doubting yourself, looking for proof outside yourself, letting fear dictate your choices, loops of fixing instead of moving forward. Small everyday actions. And if any of you have been in unhealthy, toxic dynamics, relationships, you know that sometimes it's the small everyday things that actually make up the bulk of the toxicity. It's not always just if somebody lays a hand on you or just if they call you a certain name. Ever been around a narcissist? That is small micro manipulations, small micro toxins. And that's why it can be easy to not notice until we're in a breakdown. Because power leaks, as I mentioned, often connect us to a pattern of self-abandonment, of self-rejection, when we don't honor our truth or our needs or how we deserve to be treated, or we betray our own energy. It's about noticing where you are leaking energies out of habit, where you're leaking energy out of habit, and then rewriting that pattern. So that can include boundaries, but this is why we need to look at it bigger. There are things that are leaking the power. So let's move into how to identify this before we start wrapping up this episode. So when I'm working with someone, first of all, it's just how I work. I'm listening. I'm listening to their language. And also as they're speaking, spirit shows me things and I pick up on things that they may not have picked up on, right? So within yourself, you're going to have to look subtle, but you really want to start to notice what is going on so that you know where you can mend the hole, right? So at the end of the day or right now, check in and ask, what is draining me? And I want you to just start with like everything that comes up. Maybe it's like, oh, I'm overbooked, right? We're always thinking it has to be some deep spiritual answer, but maybe it's your calendar. Maybe you don't have a spare square for yourself anywhere in the week, right? So just asking, what drained me today? What's draining me right now? Is it conversation that I had with somebody that's like, ugh, just leaking my power? Is it a decision that's coming up? Is it a thought loop? Is it something that feels forced that I don't really want to be doing? So not just general, I'm tired. And even if you want to say, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I go, okay, how? In what way? Maybe you go physically, I haven't been sleeping well. I haven't been taking my supplements. This dynamic is draining me, this conversation. I need to finish this up. All the shoulds in my mind, like whatever it is, let yourself fly free with that. What is draining your energy? And even if you're in a space of that high energy, going after big things, sometimes just the pressure on ourselves can be draining. When I'm like in my zone, I have to be careful to not like in my zone 24 hours a day for like 7 days in a row, because even when I'm excited and I'm acting and everything's great, we still need that counter to rest, to have a sacred pause. So whether, again, you're feeling great or more heavy, asking yourself, like, what's draining my energy? Where do I feel drained? What drained me today? And then starting to notice the patterns and noticing in your life, like being the observer, asking your higher self, your intuition, where are the patterns in my life that are draining me? And even something I noticed recently is like social media and my phone and stuff. The stimulation, probably even the blue light, but also the mental chatter. There's been multiple people on Instagram I've just like rested looking at their account because it was starting to just feel yucky or make me feel yucky or whatever. So just noticing the patterns. Where do you feel drained ongoingly? And I remember one time I was asking myself this, it was so long ago. I was in a job and I was working for my boss. And as soon as I asked myself this, I realized his energy was draining me because he had this like, whatever, it was this draining energy of I was on edge and I was this and I was that. So I recognized some of the things that I wanted to put into play and create boundaries around and create awareness around, because I noticed just that was simply draining my energy all day, every day. And sometimes we need to get a different job or switch it up, or there's something inside that we can shift. But either way, we're starting to track our energy in the day and kind of go, what drained me today? Where were the areas where I felt like my power was being leaked? And then noticing the patterns. Where does this come up often? Is this something that comes up often? If I were to zoom out further than this day or this week, what is going on? And I think in this time for me, I've really noticed my nervous system. I recently realized that I have a deep lack wound that I'm sure it does come from also the abandonment and all that. But what I noticed is I was feeling like lack of time, lack of support, lack of this, lack of that. This wasn't working. There's not enough of that. And I noticed that was draining me. And so that can show up and you go like, oh, I just feel like I don't have enough money. But when you look deeper, it's like, oh my gosh, lack is like everywhere. Like I feel like a lack of almost everything sometimes. That's really deep and that's really draining. So starting to notice those patterns, mental, physical, emotional, energetic. Where is your power being leaked? Is it the way you talk to yourself in your mind, the pressure? Is it the financial pressure you hold? Is it in your nervous system? Is it specific relationships that are leaking your power? And there is no wrong. There's no wrong answer, even if it's your husband or wife, or even if it's the job you have. There's no wrong answer. You just want to be aware and then start to ask, like, what do I need here? Because sometimes even the people we love the most, if we don't have boundaries or if we're not having enough alone time, it can feel exhausting to just like be around people. Or I've had clients where, their job was just depleting them so much to the point where it took away their life force. So we need to make some changes there. If your job is sucking completely your life force, there are better options. Not everybody loves their job in the way that they're like, skippity boo, and, off to work with my basket of cookies. Like, not everybody has that. But not everybody also hates or loathes or feels like every day their job chips away at their soul. So we really want to start to get honest. Where are your power leaks? And this is where we start to then take the power back. This is where we start to take micro actions, because remember, it happens in the micro actions to consciously choose differently. So when we have the mental leaks, we practice redirecting our thoughts. We practice doing the pivot work in real time. On the path, I'm actually teaching you that the recording is being dropped in the next couple days about how to pivot in real time. When our mind is going off the rails, this is where we have to practice redirecting. We have to practice trusting ourselves, being aware of how we're speaking to ourselves, right? And if you identified you had emotional leaks, setting boundaries, expressing what needs to be said, letting yourself just cry and roll around and make super weird noises as you feel your emotions. So where are your emotions being leaked? Where are you emotionally pouring from an empty cup? And then physical, right? Where are you physically pouring from an empty cup? Are you hydrated? There's a reason I always say that in the episodes. Are you hydrated? Are you looking after yourself? Are you eating enough? Are you eating well? Are you eating some vegetables? Are you physically taking care of yourself to avoid depletion? So extra rest in this time, extra water in this time, extra vegetables in this time. It'll go a long way. And physical is also nervous system, and that is so huge. And then your energetic leaks, right? This is where we stop forcing what isn't aligned. This is where we stop hustling when we feel like we're a video game, like Super Mario, when Mario's just running into the wall and still doing the running, but the wall's there, you know what I mean? It's just like you're not getting anywhere. We have to stop forcing what isn't aligned. We have to start trusting in ourselves to take that power back. So overall, as we start to wrap this up, I want to say when we feel like we are pouring from an empty cup, we are. And if we ignore it, it's going to get worse and worse until we break, until we have an emotional breakdown, mental breakdown, spiritual breakdown, literally getting a flu. There's episodes on this podcast about the spiritual flu. You can go back and look. But, we will be leveled like I have been until we see it and until we start to take a different approach. And when we start to seal up these leaks, everything does really start to shift. As I said, you plug the leak and now you're holding all that water. You start to feel clearer. You start to trust yourself more because you do actually have your back now. You start to have more space for what actually fuels you. Creative space, emotional space, patience, these things for, this space for the things that actually fuel you, space for the things that you want to be doing. You stop feeling as exhausted. Things don't drain us as much anymore because we're not already empty, right? And you start creating from a place of fullness, from a place of inspiration. This is where we start to be able to create and manifest more. We get into that overflow. There's no overflow when we are depleted. So that's another thing that I used to do too, is think like it was separate. Like, oh, I'm just going to manifest over here, but I'm totally depleted over here. Like that does not work. We manifest from overflow. So where is your power being leaked? And this is one of the things that I have realized the most in the last few weeks, months, but like really this last week, these last 2 weeks that have been just like blech. I've really realized that I am still practicing and can very easily not put my needs anywhere close to the top of the priority list. And so that is something I've really realized is like I put off taking care of myself. I put off my self-care, my practices. I skate by with like the bare minimum because, and this is how I've justified it in the last like bunch of months, there's so many other things going on. There's so many pressures, right? There's a pressure, all these things I'm talking about, to be all these roles and do all these things, and, financial pressure and this pressure and physical and all the stuff. And I can just keep trucking and going and trying to figure it out and trying to move forward and trying to manifest and trying to this and trying to that. Meanwhile, my body, my inner child, my shadow is screaming. And that's the thing I've realized. My husband likes to say, he heard it somewhere, but you got 100 problems until you have a health problem. And then when you have a health problem, you have one problem. And he's been reminding me of this and saying this to me. And sometimes I'm resistant, going like, yeah, but I don't have the time to. But what as I've really been broken down and moved through this, it's like, I have to show up for myself in an even deeper, sacred way. I have to show myself that my needs matter. And at the base of an abandonment wound or feeling alone can be this feeling of feeling alone, like compared to other people. Like nobody gets it, or nobody, knows what it's like to be me or whatever. But when I actually realize that by abandoning myself, I continually feel alone, that's the nugget for me right now. How can I feel not alone if I'm abandoning myself? So I want you guys to think about this. Hopefully I didn't get too heavy and weird and freak all of you out. This is just real life, and I refuse to show up out of integrity, pretending everything's fine when it's dense. But here we are. We still do the work. We see these things. We remain open. We cry on our yoga mat if we need to. And we hopefully move in the direction of looking after ourselves a little bit more, honoring ourselves, honoring our needs. And so I hope that this helped you today. And overall, really just asking yourself, where is my power being leaked? Is it mental? Is it physical? Is it energetic? And it could be a little of all the columns, right? And this is where we just start gathering the pieces. We start coming back to ourselves, showing up for ourselves in a way incrementally so that we can build back that trust, so that we can patch those power leaks and hold all of that beautiful life force energy for ourselves, to have it spill up and open our heart and, spill out as creativity and inspiration and really living a life of vibrancy. But we just can't do that when we are completely depleted. So I hope that this served you today, my love. And as always, I will see you in the next episode. Hey Seeker, thanks so much for tuning in. Before you go, I want to let you know about The Bedtime Ritual. This is a brand new book that I've created that is a 100-day journey of evening journal prompts. The Bedtime Ritual is a perfect tool for bringing in more intentional reflection, self-care, me time, manifestation, all in just one prompt per evening. I know you're going to love The Bedtime Ritual. The link is below and you can find it on Amazon.